Hey y'all, I'm making this video to talk about something very exciting that's happening right now, halfway around the world from Texas, where I am, in India. A guy I follow on YouTube named Sadhguru. I've been watching videos of his on mysticism and humanism for over a year now. He's actually quite a happy guru, by the way, despite his name. He's leading an almost 2,000-mile motorcycle rally alongside a river in India, and he's doing a lot of speaking engagements, and through his foundation he's raising money to plant trees on private land, and I'm sure on some public land as well, to help reforest and heal the river valley called the Kaveri River. I think it's this huge river. It's like 3,500 kilometers. And I was Googling him last week, and I came across this tweet he had given, which I have to share with you. He says, "The once fertile soil of Dharmapuri lies barren now. The hugely distressed farmers want to turn to agroforestry, as it's the only miracle that can save them. Together we must make this a reality for the people of Dharmapuri and Mother Kaveri." I love how he refers to the river as mother. So this man understands the significance and the importance, the potential positive impact that agroforestry can have on agricultural land, which has been overused, let's say. And this makes me want to talk not just about agroforestry, but silvopasture. So out here on my family's land in Central Texas, I'm running my 2 horses right now, and I'm hoping to introduce sheep in the next 6 months. So what I'm doing out here is grazing animals in woodlands and on prairie adjacent to woodlands, and technically it's silvopasture because silviculture, of course, is the cultivation of trees. So pasturing animals in wooded areas is silvopasture. This is a type of agroforestry. But to hear him talk about it in that way, referring to it as the only miracle that can help these agriculturalists, I'm sure most of them are subsistence farmers due to the high population density in India, is I think completely spot on. And we're going to have to develop more and more techniques of agroforestry and silvopasture in the future to help reduce the effects of agriculture, and especially monocultures, okay, where you're raising one type of plant, whether it's corn or soy or wheat or even multiple types of plant that you're baling into hay. Something that really frustrates me though is whenever people refer to shelter belts as being solely for wind control. So that you understand what a shelter belt is, when you look up the definition, or when you look in a textbook, an environmental science textbook, you'll find that terracing is used to control water erosion and shelter belts are used to control wind erosion. But this is not all that a shelter belt does. It's misleading, ignorant, and fallacious to call a shelter belt simply a tool for controlling wind erosion, because a shelter belt is of trees, okay? It's different from a perennial buffer strip in that way, because a buffer strip, like what agriculturalists put between their crops, it can just be grasses, perennial grasses. It's just land that you're not going to till, that you're going to give back to the grassland, let's say, because grasslands have very good water absorption. A healthy grassland, a healthy prairie, is going to sequester 6/7 the amount of carbon as a forested ecosystem. That's a big pet peeve of mine, sequestering carbon. I don't like that phrase, and I don't like it because you're referring to carbon in that way like an inanimate object. But when people say sequestering carbon, what they mean is increasing the carbon-based life forms in any given volume of Earth, okay? This is all life on this planet, as far as I know, is carbon-based. Okay, so when they talk about sequestering carbon, what they're really doing is increasing the amount of living things in the earth. And how do you do that? By increasing the amount of water available in that given volume of earth. That's what all life needs. All carbon-based life on this planet requires water. So whenever you decrease evaporation, whenever you increase water absorption, you increase the capacity of volume of earth to have living things in it. So a shelter belt doesn't just decrease wind because there are trees there, it also shades the ground. It also increases water absorption. It increases the microbial activity in the soil that the trees are planted. It does so much more than just stop wind, and yet that's all people think when they think of shelter belts, because that's usually the primary utilization of a shelter belt. And people will even come along and spray with herbicides in a shelter belt when I think that's completely unnecessary. I think honestly with Silvopasture, we'll probably be able to find the right balance of animals for any given landscape and any agricultural operation within those ecosystems. So this idea of perennial buffer strips and of shelter belts, I think it has so much potential right now, not just halfway around the world, but in America too, because it wasn't always that humans were, in this country anyway, were so unaware of the benefits of a shelter belt. During the 1930s, at the height of the Dust Bowl, the American government responded by planting over 200 million trees in less than 10 years. It was called the Great Plains Shelter Belt Project. And back then, they knew that planting those trees wasn't just going to slow down the winds that were carrying, you know, all this dust and that were part of these huge dust storms back in the 30s. They knew that it was going to increase water absorption and that it was going to heal the soil. The reason that the Dust Bowl happened was that a drought was exacerbated by people deep tilling soils which had previously been prairie grassland ecosystems that had never been tilled before, okay? But tractors had just been invented 10 or 20 years ago. And this is before agrochemicals were really common. In the 40s or 50s is when they were started to develop most of these agrochemicals that we still use today. But in the 20s and 30s, people had just gotten their hands on tractors. They had just become affordable. So they started deep tilling the land in places where the soil hadn't been broken before. And it caused evaporation. It destroyed the biome in the soil. It destroyed the microbial mat by exposing it. And so this great desertification followed. And how did the American government respond? To this day, it's still the largest response to an environmental disaster that the American government has ever mustered. They responded by planting over 200 million trees, and it helped fix the problem. Of course, education also helped. People, I think, have become much more wise, and your average agriculturalist these days is much more educated. But that's the power that a shelter belt has. It's not just to stop wind, it's to heal the land, it's to increase water absorption, it's to decrease evaporation. So whenever I think of a shelter belt, I'm really, in my mind, I see a reforestation strip. And it has a myriad of benefits. So God bless Sadhguru in India leading a motorcycle rally right now to help reforest, mostly on private land, as much of the Calvary River Basin as possible. And I agree that it's probably the only miracle that will help those agriculturalists there, and for that matter, everywhere on this planet. Thanks for watching this video, y'all. Peace.